Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there. Welcome back.
Oh, no, say it ain't so.
Say it ain't so.
Looks like they're taking Santa Claus out in handcuffs, guys. What the heck?
What a criminal. I'm sure that guy did. He must have done something just hideous. I know it.
What did he do with those claws?
He must have done something with those claws. Oh, those poor children. I'm sure they're just devastated because of whatever this beast did.
Well, you know what? He did. He didn't have a mask on. But, you know, he's got such a big beard. What would be the sense? You know, think about it. A big, huge, bushy mustache and beard. How are you going to get it unless you're going to put yourself in a full bodysuit? Then you won't even know it's Santa coming down the chimney.
So the crime is not wearing a mask. Oh, my gosh. That's awful.
It is. Oh, gosh. This crazy world we live in. Let me just make sure we're doing okay. We are okay. Well, hopefully, you know, Christmas won't be delayed.
I know. It might. You know, I don't know how the reindeer are going to fly and wear their masks, but...
Well, do they have to get permission from the sickle maker? You remember that DR, last name Fauci? It actually means, and one of the ways to translate that name is the sickle maker.
Yeah, and they're going to have to get a note from him, too.
I'm glad Santa doesn't come bearing sickles.
I know.
You know, me too. Yeah. Well, anyway, crazy world we live in here. Before we get going, I want to thank everybody. We went over a milestone there, as you see, 14K subscribers.
Yay!
So, you know, it's always that never-ending battle of checking to make sure everybody is subscribed, because somehow, you know, some way and shape, they find themselves to be unsubscribed from time to time. And we've noticed that happens to be the case whenever we get close to a milestone. All of a sudden, you know, it's one step forward, two steps back.
Every show, it's like 3 unsubbed every time we do a show. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's interesting, especially the ones where the videos seem to be more popular. Yeah. You know, like you have a big video or a bigger video, and then, but you know, these numbers are tiny compared to what Evolutionary used to show it got before everything, you know, happened with this plague upon the land. As then a typical video would get anywhere from 10 to 20,000 views that it was showing. We do want to thank all of our supporters over at Patreon as well, and Ko-Fi, and all those that have been checking out Medicinal Foods. We've had nothing but, you know, wonderful feedback from people there as well. So jumping on to what else is happening besides Santa Claus being taken away in chains.
Oh, I know. That's awful.
Yes, and we're going to see we did have a 7.3 quake that hits off the coast of Indonesia. And, you know, this is a big quake. Some sources were saying 7.4, some 7.5. It's big. Mm-hmm. It was actually on the seafloor off the coast, so it did trigger a tsunami warning. But, you know, thankfully no tsunami manifested. When you see something like this, again, it depends on how deep it was, because, you know, the deeper quakes won't shake the surface as much. But this did create a lot of issues, and it did destroy buildings. People were actually running out of their homes, screaming and terrified. And again, if I had to pick one place in this entire planet from an earth change standpoint that I would not want to be, it's in Indonesia, because, you know, they get everything. We did see that big tsunami. We got volcano action. It's in the Ring of Fire, but this is one of the hottest areas in the Ring of Fire too. Mm-hmm. You know, so you have earthquakes, you got the potential for tsunami, you got the potential for some massive volcanic eruptions, you got everything possible here. And when you look at some of these buildings that people are living in, they look like, well, if Santa sneezed, he might knock a wall over.
Yeah, I know. That was sad.
Awful. It is. So, you know, again, we always offer our prayers for everybody that's going through tough times. And, you know, when we think about tough times, how about, you know, what's going on with La Palma? Because La Palma is still, it's ongoing. It hasn't slowed. It hasn't stopped. Now you got more than 33,000 people.
Again.
Yeah, confined amid record-breaking 85 days now of strong activity. 33,000 people.
They love their numbers, don't they?
They do. So this is now the longest active volcano event in recorded history on La Palma. It is. When you think about it, that's going back to 1585. It was one eruption there that lasted for 84 days. And again, what we have gotten is this has some artificial flavoring going on over there.
Mm-hmm. It does. It does have artificial flavoring going on, which is something that's not too unusual these days because they like to take whatever is happening naturally and go ahead and give it a little nudge.
Absolutely. And sometimes a huge nudge.
Yeah.
So this outbreak of tornadoes that we had December 10th through 11th is the largest, most intense super outbreak of tornadoes in U.S. history. Absolutely devastating. As we talked about, there's like 75% of this one town that is gone, just gone. And it's, 5 states that were affected. You have people that survive talking about hearing the screams of people getting, having their homes collapse in on them. Many places can be without heat, water, or electricity in cold temperatures for weeks. Now, I don't know about you guys, but we're on a temperature roller coaster. This is our first year in this part of the country. Gotta say, so far we're loving this quote unquote, fall into winter season. Temperatures today in the mid 70s, absolutely wonderful.
Beautiful.
And it looks like it will be a very good place to grow food. And, of course, we're talking about the Texarkana area. Kentucky governor confirms you got 74 known lost and 109 people still unaccounted for.
That's a lot.
This is a lot in tornadoes. And then we had at the same time number 46, El Presidente saying, that this was a horrible hurricane. Does he know the difference between a hurricane or a tornado?
Well, not at this point. I'm sure he's at an age where everything just sort of blends in and it all means the same thing, and it's okay.
Well, at least he didn't go wandering from the podium, and at least he didn't have the flap on the back of his pants turned down.
And he's just one of those folks where it's all okay for him.
Yeah, it's all okay. Sure. Mm-hmm. Now, this is interesting. When you really look at what was hit, there was a lot of farms that were hit. A lot of farms. And this is going to also add to, guess what? All the skyrocketing inflation when it comes to food prices. Although I got to tell you guys, I was shocked. I mean, we walked into the store the other night for one thing that we needed, and they had avocados 3 for 99 cents. I don't remember seeing avocados 3 for 99 cents ever in my life. Now, maybe in some places it is that cheap, but I've never seen it.
No, not here. And we've been in the general area. It's never been that cheap. So I don't know. Some must have a sale on avocados somewhere.
Well, after our stint in New Mexico and out west in Nevada before that, it is most definitely nice because, like in Nevada too, where we were, it could be a challenge to get like fresh stuff. And you pay a little bit more for it, just like you pay more for the gas.
Always, even if it's like GMO, non-GMO, if you can get any kind of fruit, you're lucky.
So expect food price inflation, chickens, tractors, and grain silos. Now there was grain and that was harvested and going to be sent out to be utilized and eventually get out to the stores, but it's just destroyed now. It's interesting. There's video in here where they cover some of the damage, and again, devastating is the word that we're seeing, a 200-mile swath. This is adding to it. And the first video shows that chicken hatchery and processing factory has been completely destroyed. That was in Mayfield. Poultry is Kentucky's top agricultural commodity, and at least a dozen chicken barns collapsed. Isn't it just amazing? All the blows that we've had to the food industry.
I know, just one after the other, and all revolving around nowish.
Yeah, delays in the processing and raising of chickens. Mm-hmm. And, it's just one thing after another. We had talked about this in the guides. We're saying, yes, this was most definitely another like La Palma artificially flavored event. Lots of farmer elevators damaged, small feed mills have been damaged with indefinite timelines. Mayfield Grain Company, a crop handler, had roofs ripped off parts of the storage system that holds 6 million bushels. 6 million bushels of grain. It's enough corn to fill 2 Panamax vessels. Each shipped the length of 2 football fields loaded with grain. And that might all be lost, or a big portion of it might be lost as we see this. You think about it, this hit an area that was very, very important.
Mm-hmm.
Millions of bushels of corn, just freshly harvested, now being exposed to the elements, perhaps mold, and not a good situation.
Well, mold, and you got mice, and you got,
Yep.
I mean, that's just totally not savable. There's nothing you can do.
That really definitely sucks.
Yeah, it does.
U.S. expert says Ukraine can hold out for only 30 minutes before saying I give to the Russian military. Well, that's not much. No, and as we know, the tensions are flying high over there. And this next article is from Zero Hedge, and it's talking about Putin's coup in India, which we were talking about. And I think there's a lot that's going on behind the scenes with this. So, as we had said, Russia last week announced a major new energy cooperation deal with India that threatens the very core of the U.S.'s fight back strategy against Beijing and Moscow's expansionism in the Middle East and beyond. And I think there's even more than this to it, because, there was somebody that I knew right off the bat was deeply tied into the that group with an I, starts with an I, ends with an I, has a couple L's, a U, an M, an I, an N. Oops, I said the I a couple times. You guys get the picture, I think. I hope you do.
Yeah, they do.
I hope you do. And I knew this person was tied into that group, and they were giving me information that I knew that was tainted and biased in a certain, manner, so as to, try to make me think it was something that it wasn't. But always kind of just went along with them, just to see what they were going to say. But one of the things they did say that I think is accurate, let's just say that Red Dawn scenario happens, and let's just say the fine dining ware country comes out on top, and we start to roll into that one PCC, put it to a mirror global system. At some point, the tensions between Russia and the fine dining ware country will loom over dominance. And so to me, this looks like a hedge for when that comes, Russia to have an ally in India that has an equal number of people, so more resources to kind of, assure their future. Let's just say it that way. And because, there are incursions all the time by the fine dining ware country into Russian territory. And with, just the same sort of things we've seen going on, in the borders with India does happen with Russia as well. They are allied right now, and staunch allies, and they will remain allies throughout the coming conflict that has been prophesized by so many and seems to be close to manifesting. But after the end of that conflict, you might see it break down even more and not necessarily be completely over as time goes on. And this feels like a hedging of a bet. And actually, there are sources that say that it's inevitable that when we get to 2050, if everything is still in place on this planet, that even 2040 perhaps, that the dominant power on the planet would be India and not necessarily the fine dining ware. We talked yesterday that, fine dining ware, obviously they had that one child policy for so long, and it did impact them. Now they're expecting something else to come along that's going to, cause well, maybe it's already very well in progress. It's going to cause there to be a lot less births. And perhaps that's not just in the fine dining ware country. Maybe that's a global thing, but maybe not Africa. And, we're going to touch on something there as well. Because Africa seems to be affected in a different way by everything that's going on right now. And it will be a breadbasket in these times. And so we see Russia has given the West and NATO an ultimatum, an undisclosed date by which all demands pertaining to Ukraine should be met. If not, a military option will begin to be followed through by Russia. Ukraine's Kiev has begun organizing civil defense drills as well as recruiting reservists. And there was a statement by the leadership there in the Ukraine that if everything got real bad and they were getting overrun, like it said in that previous article, 30 minutes isn't long. Mm-hmm. That's not long at all. If they were getting overrun, they would simply open up all their weaponry to the public to wage a guerrilla war and try to stave off the occupation. And that sounds absolutely brutal. Mm-hmm. But then again, why can't we all get along?
We should be. Well, I think us, the quote, little people who have big hearts, could absolutely get along. I don't think we have a problem at all.
No, again, it's always the desire, the greed, the ego, the power. And this is one thing that, the guys were talking to us about again. The infighting between these people. Now, yes, they do have a structure. And we're talking about the quote-unquote powers that be currently upon the planet. They do have a structure, but believe me, their egos are gigantic, and they do have such a lust and greed for power, control, and things that they're always infighting. Mm-hmm. And we even saw this again when we go back to Sumeria, and we see the Sumerian city-states each had their own patron deity that was literally believed to reside in the temple when they were in town. That literally got the best of all the fruits, the wines, the food, even the most beautiful women. As think about those traditions that went on in those days, and they literally were thought to reside in their temples. And then you got the legends of the interbreeding between the quote-unquote gods or the quote-unquote fallen angels, which is a massive distortion of reality. And again, when did all that come about? The thoughts of fallen angels. And what exactly is an angel? Well, you got to look to the rise of the church for that line of thinking. So you're talking about the power structure that controls the world is giving you that entire concept. Wakey, wakey. Mm-hmm. Recognize that they're giving you that concept. Why would they give you that concept? Well, for one, they don't want you recognizing that there are extraterrestrials and there are interdimensional beings. They want you to think of it in much more of a biblical term, because that limits your understanding of what's really going on. And as we said, King James, who gave you the King James version of the Bible, the ultimate insider, he was the head of all the Masonic lodges in the UK and England. And then how about Constantine the Great as a fighter jet goes over really low?
Wow, that was beautiful. Low. Big. I wonder if they heard that. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, maybe they're sending, okay.
Well, it's
let's hope we get ready to finish this video.
Yeah.
Constantine the Great, was a pagan Roman emperor who worshipped Sol Invictus, the conquering sun. And then had a vision of what he said was Christ on the cross saying, conquer in my image, conquer in this image, the image of the cross. And there you go. Then you have the Catholic Church, which is born after the Council of Nicaea and other councils that came after it, in which they debated things like, was Christ man? Was Christ God? Was he man God? Was he just a teacher? Was he a prophet? They had to debate these things. They came up with a unified story. And then they gave that story to the masses. And then as time went on, if you didn't believe in that story, you could be put to death. So you got to recognize these things, because these are the people that want you to believe it's all angels and demons. So if you're still believing it's all just angels and demons, you're believing, the mass media. Would you totally trust your life to CNN? Do you totally trust your life to MSNBC? Do you believe every word that comes out of Jen Psaki? Hello.
Mm-hmm.
It's just put two and two together, look to the history and understand what's going on. And as we see, part of this next big conflagration is going to be Islam against Christianity, which again, in 1871, a certain A. Pike, a 33rd degree Mason, also a Confederate Army general, said, this has to come about. This is part of their plan. They're planning 3 of these big wars. And the third one will be all about the conditions of Islam and Christianity facing each other and ultimately totally annihilating each other. This is what they want, total annihilation. Just again, go back to the Tower of Babel. Hey, they're united. They're getting along peacefully. They're being constructive. We can't have this. Again, would the creator of everything really say that? No, absolutely not. It doesn't ring even remotely true. But, again, if you translate the words used for God, it literally means the powerful ones, the mighty ones. There you go. And so we see fine dining where hackers are exploiting fully weaponized software vulnerability, which is causing mayhem on the web and poses a threat to internet-connected devices worldwide, the experts are warning. There was another article saying just how everything is totally controlled really by Microsoft and Apple when you get down to it. We really are living in a giant monopoly. There's very little that is not controlled by this structure that we find ourselves in. And since the plague upon the land happened, and we had that lockdown that destroyed millions of small businesses, mom and pop stores, mom and pop restaurants, small companies even, absolutely destroyed them. What are we left with? We're left with, the biggies. We're left with, the Amazons and the Walmarts and the Sam's Clubs and Costco's and things like this. And eventually, that's all they plan on having and eventually it's going to all be basically state run, as we're going to see as we look deeper into what's really going on behind the surface. And don't forget Bosnia Herzegovina and this area, Serbia. There are signs that this could be another potential conflict point. And there's actually a couple of prophecies that do mention that too, that the third conflagration does involve there being fighting ongoing here again. Now, of course, we had fighting here for a long time, but there's been about 26 years of, maybe we should say it's more of a ceasefire than a peace, as you see Bosnian Serb entity assembly in favor of withdrawing from central institutions in Bosnia. And go all the way back to, there's been so many breakups of countries and rebuilding, but this is the way it's been forever. If you look to maps, and we did do it in one video, and you just go like every 50 years for a while, maybe go back to 1800, looking at every 50 years, look at now, look at 1950, look, in between World War I and II, go back to like 1870s. The maps of the countries of the world are constantly changing. Constantly. Because there's constant warfare. And it's the same thing. We go back to ancient times. It never stops.
No, it just goes on, and that's their game. And they keep finding new ways to peel a layer off of things so that they can reach more people and have more control over everything. It's just the story is the same over and over and over. They just sort of spoon everything out in different ways.
But when you have like half the resources of, the largest, well, what has been the largest economy on the planet dedicated to weapons of war, it shows you there's something inherently wrong and sick with the mindset of the system. As you see, the EU threatens Dodik with army within 24 hours. Top OSCE officials have warned Republika Srpska authorities that their actions are dangerously threatening peace in Bosnia-Herzegovina and the entire region. And then, of course, we could look over to Armenia and Azerbaijan. And, again, why do we constantly harp on the religious component? Well, because just look to Armenia and Azerbaijan. That's the division. It's again, they're using the religious division to create the firewood, the timber, for nonstop fighting. And many of us have thought this all along, right? They're going to use the welfare state to get compliance, the dates for men. And so there's a lawmaker in Illinois that introduced legislation requiring people that haven't gone along with the dates for men to pay out of pocket. This is one of the ways, that many people had foreseen it going.
Mm-hmm. And they're going to keep doing that. They're going to keep squeezing people very much like a snake squeezes a rat, and they're not going to let up. And that's why we need to back out of our position. So we back out and take control of ourselves.
Well, that was a great analogy right there. Mm-hmm. Just like a snake squeezing a rat, squeezing its prey. So there's an African nation that's going to destroy 1 million doses. And this is Nigeria. Because what's happened in the past too is a lot of stuff that's expired or going to be expired ends up heading to Africa, and it's just been one of their practices. It's like a business practice of so many of these companies. Yet when we look at what's going on in Africa as far as the plague upon the land, they've really had very little, it's had little effect on them, very little compared to some of the other countries. There was a fuel tank explosion in Haiti. Unfortunately, it took at least 60 lives. And when you think about the poverty of some of these places, Haiti could be a paradise. The Dominican Republic could be a paradise. When you look at, just how gorgeous the nature is there, it's just amazing. And, this is an area that realistically, if the power was out, you might sweat a little, but you know what? You'd be able to grow food. You'd be able to not freeze to death, and you wouldn't probably die of heat exposure either, as long as you had a nice, banyan tree or something to get some shade under. Could be a paradise on earth, but if you've ever visited some of these countries, you will see more poverty than is almost imaginable. And it really doesn't have to be this way. And also, unfortunately, so many of these countries are under leadership that is so severely lacking. Of course, that seems to be a global issue, lack of true leadership. Mm-hmm. And so we have Russia warning about frozen ancient viruses. And this is because we have the warming of the permafrost, which is releasing a lot of methane. And, who knows what is being unleashed. And this is at least what is being warned about from some Russian scientists. Others have mentioned this too. I remember covering this a half a dozen times at least, in the past year.
This is the beginning of a very good movie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, that's a good way of putting it. And yet another mystery disease kills 89 people. Where? In Africa. Yeah. And it's yet to be identified. And they don't really even get into too much detail.
The guides are saying that we should pay attention to this one. Not that that's it, but pay attention to it. Yeah. So we'll watch this one.
Okay. So this has happened in an area recently hit by flooding. The officials ruled out cholera as the cause. So they're sending a rapid response team to go collect samples. And we'll see. We'll see what's happening.
And please send your healing energies toward these people. It's just not fair that they are so, torn down, just constant by disease and poverty. It's so sad.
It's truly sad because we don't have there's no reason for this other than greed. and control and power. There's really no reason in this time. When we see billionaires like Bezos and Musk's and Gil Bates over there, they could stop all the suffering on the world just by themselves and utilizing of their resources. It's the system. Can't we see? It's the system. And it's going to take people's heart chakras opening up to where they can't accept this system anymore. The system has to go. This is a system that's all based on me, me, me. Me, 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 me. Totally, totally, completely. It banks on ego. It banks on greed. It exists because it knows that there are always going to be those that can be tempted. And as long as it's, the tragedies are not happening to their family and they can go and jet set and everything, they're fine.
Well, it's that wolf that continues to be fed.
Yeah, we can go back to the two wolf story.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps we could have picked a better two wolf story out there, but again, it's like a 90-second quip on
well,
a 40,
we were
50 minute.
Trying to get something
video.
Across, yeah.
Yeah, it's just trying to bring up another congruency. So meds not needed. Oh, don't say that. For anxiety sufferers, and we've talked about this, and I even did it with Cindy too. When she was having some issues, I just said, "Sweetie, breathe with just 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, hold 1, 2, exhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 1, 2. Inhale. Do that type of pattern. You could even elongate it. Inhale for 6, hold for 2, exhale for 6, hold for 2. There is no way your body couldn't go out of a fight or flight response. It has to shift to the rest and digest. It's an on and off switch as far as your nervous system. You're in one or you're in the other. And, breathing is so important. But this is talking about how exercise proves to be a powerfully effective treatment. And in reality, yeah, but we're kind of bred to be lazy as a society. The more we get used to, not even having to pick up a remote, just doing Alexa, turn on the TV. How lazy can we get? In reality, just think about that. Just the calories that we no longer burn from getting up to go turn on the TV even, which, hopefully we're spending more time outside or, doing things that are creative and fun. There's a reason why the ancient cultures in a golden age, they didn't let technology become their masters. They recognized that it was a blessing to be in a physical body, and they also recognized that they were part of the earth itself, so they had a reverence for it. There was a question that was saying something along the lines of, why would we want to ground with the earth if we are to ascend, and that the earth is physical and ascension is going to take us out of the non-physical. And this is the way there's like a need for clarity in so many ways. The earth is ascending. Not everybody is going to ascend, unfortunately. Because of the system, not every human is going to make it to 5D this go around. And unfortunately, there will be those that end up stuck in a 3D system. And, the Earth's consciousness itself is ascending, and she will make her way up. Although it does even get into a lot more complicated theory than even just that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. It does get a little bit complex. But going back to the anxiety for just a moment, there's a really good reason why they teach the Navy SEALs how to breathe. It's to help them stay calm in those really crazy situations. So studying up on breathing is so good for you. I mean, there's a lot of things we can do before we turn to any medicine.
Absolutely. And exercise is key. I went through a particularly stressful period in my life where basically In order to end a relationship that I knew was a dead end and was dragging me down spiritually, I had to, basically live out of my car for a period of time. And I was thankful that I was doing a job where I could have a bed, which was nice. Um, and it was a choice I made because I knew it was the right spiritual choice, even though, and I've made a lot of those choices in my life where people would look at me like, you're crazy, because you have a good thing going from a material standpoint, but then I know from what the guides were saying, it wasn't in my highest purpose. So many, many times I left what could be more of a cushy situation and start all over, but it was the right move to do spiritually. And so I was very stressed at one point, and instead of just simply drowning it with whatever uh, prescript you could get from the DR, I basically just started to just throw myself wholeheartedly into a real tough exercise program, as well as meditation and Qigong, and just lean more on that. And it made me stronger, and it also gave me clarity, and it gave me more endurance to to basically fight the good fight and get situated again in a better situation.
And then there are people out there who are challenged, as far as being able to go out and actually exercise and push the body. But it's really important to take a look at around. You can do qigong, you can do something to get the body moving and get the energies moving in the right direction. I guess the moral to this story is, if I'd have known about alternative medicines before the doctors has gotten a hold of me, I would probably be completely fine right now. But what they did to me was absolutely inhumane, and they're wanting to do it to a lot of other people. So please, there are other options out there. Explore them thoroughly before you try any of the other stuff, and then go for plant medicine, because that's awesome.
Just utilize the body, get active as much as possible, always eat clean. When it comes to understanding too, everything, we could go back to what we've learned from Einstein and Tesla and so many other amazing scientists since the quantum revolution of sorts. But again, the yogis were talking about this thousands of years ago. Thousands and thousands of years ago, the yogis knew exactly what we've now learned through quantum physics. Everything is energy. It's just energy all at different vibrational frequencies. Your physical body is just basically something that is more dense. It's more dense because it's moving at a slower rate.
Well, yeah.
And then when we look to, and let me go ahead and you
Oh,
talk.
yeah, we're just a really thick form of plasma. So very, very thick form of plasma. And, that's something else they don't teach us in school. They don't teach us about that other matter. They teach us nothing about it, which is really unfortunate, because plasma is all around us, and it's us. It is us. It's constantly moving, constantly changing. Just because we can't see it with the naked eye doesn't mean much anymore, because we are finally getting more and more information about the world that is around us, finally. But it's sure has taken a while.
Yeah, there's so many different diagrams and stuff that we could see, and there's many different layers to the energy body. So it doesn't mean that the physical body is something totally foreign to these energy layers. It's just about frequency and vibration. It's all vibrating at different speeds. As we had said before, there was a Buddhist monk, T. Lobsang Rampa, and in one of his books, he talks about his teacher saying to him when he was marveling at the stars, and it looks like there's all this vacuum or emptiness between the stars. Like, the stars are all interspersed, these little points of light. And his teacher said to him, why do you marvel? If you were to shrink down to like 1/1,000,000th your size and look up at me, or if I was to shrink down to 1/1,000,000th my size and look up at you, we would see the same thing. You wouldn't see the physical body as being solid anymore. you would see the fact that it's actually mostly vacuum. We know that when we look to an atom, it's mostly vacuum. You have the electrons, circling the neutron, and the proton, the nucleus. And this is, again, one of the reasons why, I think it's a model, a heliocentric model instead of a Earth-centric model, because we don't have the nucleus, circling around electrons. It couldn't circle around multiple electrons. How would that work anyway? So the electrons circle around the nucleus, and they orbit, and we shouldn't even say circle, because the patterns might be all sorts of different elliptical patterns. But this is the as above, so below rule, and this is why, again, it appears the Earth is spherical. And again, it appears because ultimately everything is a holograph in the first place. It's a mental construct of our brains so that we can operate in this reality. But it doesn't mean that the physical body has nothing to do, or there's no sort of connection between it and the other layers. So the physical body, let's say, boom, there's a tragedy and it's shed. We'll find ourselves in the etheric, and we will still kind of look like ourselves. We might even look at our hands and just, if we appear a little different. Maybe we're shimmering a little bit. It's all relative, because even on 5D, when we look at, say, Laurel, our contact, to her, everything in her reality feels very, very much like our reality does to us here.
Absolutely. Things are just a little bit different, but actually when I do look at beings in different areas, things look more alive. They actually sparkle. So it's like the opposite of decay. You can say everything on the planet that's here and in the now, unless it's growing or just born, it is in sort of a state of decay. But when I look at other people, if someone wants me to see a loved one, they're still kind of in this shape. They might even be in a house, but they sparkle, they glitter. It's like they're just alive. It's just different.
It is. It's a different reality. But even when we if we go and we look really deeper into things, and we talk about the Vedic books, and they talk about the length of a lifespan of the universe itself, and even that does kind of have a slow rate of decay. And everything, we have the Big Bang and we have a big collapse. It's almost like an inhale and an exhale. It might be a 13 billion year inhale and exhale, which sounds like a huge time. But again, as above, so below. To us, the lifespan of a fruit fly is horribly short. Yet, when we look to the lifespan of people in a golden age, that perhaps it's 100,000 years, which seems incomprehensible to us. But if you recognize that you're in a totally different body at a different vibrational frequency that doesn't decay as fast, then it is no longer something that seems so impossible. Again, it's understanding, again, it's all about vibration and frequency, but the basic material is still energy. And everything is energy, everything is consciousness. We are existing in this ocean of consciousness.
An ocean it is.
Yes. So thank you guys for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. We couldn't do it without you. Do check out Medicinal Foods as well. I've included a link here to some pranayama techniques. And again, prana is the life force. And so this is the control of the life force through breathing. And it's powerful, absolutely powerful. Yesterday, I took a little power nap in between people, and I didn't fall asleep. All I did was just basically do what we call pore breathing, which rejuvenated me. And that's just basically consciously inhaling the life force through every pore in the body. And every inhale, draw it in. Every exhale, release.
And you can do that, like say you're sitting at your office or between phone calls or you're filling out paper. You can train your brain to constantly do that. And it really does help the body. It does like this super amazing thing to you, even if you're only doing it for a minute.
Yeah, it's a powerful technique. And I think we'll be doing some more meditation videos. It's been a long time since we put any up. And we'll go into some of these techniques for you guys. So as always, God bless and namaste.
Namaste.